for you. Business group Sakeliga says the new COVID-19 regulations are another nail in the coffin for small and medium enterprises. The group represents some 12,000 members in all parts of the country and feels that the sudden change to the regulations without any warning or any consultation is unfair. The new rules have serious implications, they say, for the owners of buildings who could become criminally liable for the conduct of those who use their premises. Now, Sakeliga says they are contemplating taking legal action against the state over the latest regulation changes. Let's chat to Piet le Roux. He is the CEO of Sakeliga. He joins us now via our Skype line in Pretoria. Piet, good morning. Thanks very much for your time this morning. A big blow, no doubt, that the regulations do change without a moment's notice. Is there any comfort in the fact that this is a pandemic? These are extraordinary times, and these are the steps the government needs to take to protect lives.
Well, Michelle, I don't know if these are the exact steps or the exact way in which the steps are taken, but there is certainly a big sympathy among business right from the start, from the outset. People were willing to make things do with the regulations, knowing that they weren't perfect, knowing that there was a pressure of time, etc. Even if people didn't agree with the measures, they were willing to work with them.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now is changes to these regulations, massive changes at a moment's notice, just as the economy was picking up ahead again, just as people had restocked, etc. So we can get into the merits of the regulations themselves, but just as a matter of how this is done, it's simply unacceptable. It could have been done with 1/10 of the economic damage with the same effect.
Yeah, I mean, some 12,000 members are part of your business group. Tell us about some of the stories that they are telling you, some of the impact to their businesses that they are telling you about.
Look, the stories of people having to not pay workers is heartbreaking, having to lay them off, having to close shop. Then there are businessmen and women, people who try to pay their employees as best they can and try to honor their contracts, even at massive expense to themselves, because it's very important to be honorable in business and to make your employees feel that they can depend on you, to be there for them and to take the blows. And that's what our members are trying to do, but it can't be done indefinitely. I've tried to do this for 4 months now, and some of them had your relief. We could see the economy was picking up again, and now this is, it doesn't only have an effect on the alcohol business, it has a ripple effect through the economy.
So let's talk about the alcohol regulations, though. So on Sunday evening, the President addressing us as a country with immediate effect, he says the ban on the sale and distribution of alcohol comes into effect. That Sunday night, we see those regulations gazetted. What are the very real on-the-ground effects of that kind of regulation?
Well, remember that it's not clear that everybody will be watching a president on the evening when he makes these announcements. We are more than 50 million people in the country. Now, some people would not have known about those regulations and have potentially gone and traded the next day illegally. Also, police would have to immediately enforce those regulations, but they wouldn't have been briefed on matters that have serious constitutional and legal and human rights implications. From an economic perspective, many shops, and not only liquor stores, but restaurants, etc., have just stocked up again on a lot of perishables and alcohol, because remember, restaurants could do take alcohol takeaways, and now they have this stock that sits on their balance sheet but draws interest, etc., and they have to carry that without warning. They could have, if there was warning, like there was during the initial lockdown in March, then people could get rid of some stock and make plans, but there's no warning, and that doesn't make sense.
So that's certainly one major impact of regulations being implemented at a moment's notice. You were also telling us about the impact of owners of buildings who then become criminally liable for the conduct of their tenants, because, as you say, not everyone would have been watching that address necessarily on Sunday evening.
Yes, and so the regulations aren't exactly clear. We're still, our legal team, studying it. We will be sending some briefings out to our members today. But it appears that the regulations at least attempt to criminalize it for owners of buildings, for managers, for senior staff, designated employees, if anybody on the premises will fail to take action like maintain having a mask on and so on. And this isn't now you could face 6 months in jail and or legal financial fines. And the problem with this is now, firstly, there's no time to consult your legal advisors on what to do. There's no time to rebrief your employees on their conduct. There's no time to come to terms with regulations, and immediately you can go to jail. So from one moment to the next, we saw people being made criminals in South Africa. And maybe that wasn't the intention, but if that wasn't the intention, then do it properly. I mean, you have great legal minds. This thing, we've been living with COVID-19 for 4 months now. There's no surprise that in the uptake in cases. There's no surprise in the uptake in deaths. It's happening even at a slower pace than expected, much slower than initially, thankfully. But given that there's no surprise, why take decisions at a moment's notice?
So just before we wrap up our interview, Piet, you say you've been in communication with COCTA to seek some clarity. What's that communication been like? Are you getting any joy there for your members?
Well, initially during the lockdown period, we didn't get any joy from communication. Later on, after we successfully won a court case because government had tried, especially Department of Trade, Industry and Small Business, tried to introduce business licensing in South Africa, which required business to get a license before they could do business. We got that set aside, and after that, and shortly before that, we were getting some more joy with quick responses. We'll be sending letters to COCTA today because we want to understand what's the urgency here. How long have these regulations been on the table before they were communicated to us? That's our starting point. We'll see. I mean, obviously, always there are legal options available, but we try our best not to litigate because we understand that this is a serious medical situation and a serious economic situation. We try not to litigate. For now, we're going to be corresponding. We're going to try and assist our members to understand what's going on and try to mitigate it as best we can.